I knew Martin's name very well from living in Fort Worth, Texas, which is where my, that's not where I got this accent from. But I worked at the Kimball Museum in Fort Worth, and one of Martin's most monumental works is a pair of angels on the facade of a new concert hall there. So I knew his name very well from that, and it's been a great pleasure and a privilege to get to know him since I moved from Texas to Southern California. We've been showing a work of his, a sculpture called Emerging, in the lobby of Laguna Art Museum recently, and it'll be there for at least a few more weeks, so come and see it sometime. And don't miss the smaller works by Martin that are around the room now in this special mini exhibition. So we'll go through some slides of works of Martin's and works of other lesser sculptors like Michelangelo, and talk about them a little bit. And then I'll open it up to you. So bear in mind the possibility that you could ask Martin a question when he and I are done. But let's start with Michelangelo, actually. It's hard to imagine a great work of art like Michelangelo's David here was once just a big raw block of uncut stone. And I know, Martin, you're deeply interested in the materials and the techniques of the great sculptors of the past. So perhaps you could tell us the story of that particular block of marble that Michelangelo worked this miraculous sculpture from.
I was frightened when I saw the poster from Michelangelo to Marton Varo. So I have to find an excuse. I will talk about carving marble. Not about me, it's a technique which is as old as sculpting, and there are two types of sculptors. By birth, you can't change that. Left-handed or right-handed, we are wired in a way that some sculptors, actually the majority, puts together malleable material, shape, take, put, add, shape, until they see what they want to do. Another approach to shape a volume is to chip away from a block. Would you please read that? I don't want to watch it by accent.
Well, this is a quote that Martin asked me to read from the great Roman writer Cicero. So this is way back in ancient Roman times.
Definitely not about me.
Not about him. And he was talking about one of the great sculptors of antiquity. Cicero says, "For his masterpieces were made by chipping away the marble, not by adding anything to it. And when, after much chipping, the lineaments of a face were reached, one then realized that the work, now polished and complete, had always been inside the block."
Now here we come back to the block. Young Michelangelo already carved the Pietà, and all Italy is talking about, got a commission. The Republic of Florence wanted to make a glorious monument to their greatness. So they wanted a large sculpture. Michelangelo got a commission and he was looking for material. And the buzz was that there was a large block laying there somewhere for 50 years because the sculptor who initially wanted to carve it was not a carver. We didn't know what these things, but now we can reconstruct the story. So he had a model and tried to translate by measurements to the marble, and he made an error. And he realized early in the process that no way he made the error, you cannot put back marble. So abandoned the block, laid there for long. This young man, Michelangelo, got the commission and he heard about the block, so he went there to see, because to take a large block from the mountains across, far away in the quarry, to there would take years. But there was a block there, right? So he looked at it and I could do it. He saw the sculpture, how he would imagine and fit in that block as it was, carved here, missing parts of the block, and he made his guiding model just to have the anatomy, everything right, and carved directly into the block. And this is the key that he envisioned the sculpture right in that block. Everything what he imagined was in the block because his imagination followed the shape of the block. So he started working on it, and some say that the position, as you see, something was pulled, cut here. You don't see anything now because he did the right thing. Without this story, we would have never imagined that this was a washed large block to begin with. He's genius, but he was born with this quality and ability to figure out how the sculpture would fit in that block. And he famously said that the sculpture was in the block, you just have to free it. Well, that's the job he did. The uniqueness is that there is one David, this one. They make every year several copies. Brilliant stone carvers, they can copy, they make same size for shipping all over the world. They are on display from Forest Lawn in Los Angeles to Korea, many, many places, Las Vegas. None of them is like this. They made a replica of it because after 400 years, the value took a toll. Not much, but in time they took inside the gallery, the academia. People stay in line. The next picture will show the crowd every day. The original is out there, everybody's taking photos in the front of the City Hall in Florence, but if you want to see the real thing, and everybody wants to see, they line up for hours to get in. So this is what carving marble means. The sculptor holds in his hands everything, all the process. So he delivers the sculpture as it is. And of course, nobody can do as he did. Even if you copy the details, it's like a poster versus the original painting.
This is a great picture because it gives you a sense of how enormous Michelangelo's David is. I mean, however many times you see it reproduced in a book, without that human scale, you don't quite realize
well, that
big
was my son's merit that he could smuggle in some camera. The next picture is also very important. Here is what I'm talking about. The sculpture starts in a block. And, well, Michelangelo was Michelangelo, and with all the fame, but sometimes situations brought that his commission was cancelled, or he was sent away, political, whatever reasons, financial reasons included, and then these sculptures were left in the process. So you follow, and this is to most of the people also as exciting than the final finished product. You see the process. You see how he envisioned the sculpture in the block and followed its feeling. And you see one is hardly sketched, the other is more advanced, but you already see the sculpture. And this is only if you have this ability to see the sculpture and follow it. The other procedure is going after dots, measuring points everywhere, and when all the dots are together, then you see the sculpture. But you don't have the impression like here, the live process. You almost see him as he stopped, look, how is the next step? What is to do? And I think this is as exciting as seeing the...
Yeah, I think Michelangelo liked the idea, didn't he, that the figure was there inside the block and that it was struggling and writhing to come out. And you get the sense of that in these later deliberately unfinished works.
So this is the most dramatic of his work.
So you said that sculptors are instinctively carvers or modelers. You know,
they are born like that.
So, and they're born like that. Yes.
But
and just to clarify,
explain how it is retired in the brain. I don't know, but I discovered that.
So a modeler in sculpture is someone who makes sculpture by adding things. Like if you work with clay, you can slap together a figure very quickly by adding bits and pieces as you go along. Whereas, of course, if you're a carver, you work with, say, wood or marble, in the case of Michelangelo, and it's a subtractive process. You're chipping away at something. And sculptors seem to agree that you are born either one or the other. And I know you knew you were a carver at an early age because of one thing, didn't you?
I saw Geppetto carving Pinocchio. I was about 6 years old. And I told my parents, Geppetto was using a pocket knife. I want a pocket knife because I want to do the same thing. So ever since, honest to God, I never wanted to be a fireman, a policeman. I wanted to be a sculptor. And I still sticking to this. But let me say something. I don't want to take away from the other type of sculptors. Because we are talking about Rodin. And many famous sculptors who could do their sculpture modeling. So it's nothing that carving is a better way to do, or the other one's lesser or better. Carving marble is one thing, and the modeler sculptor still can have his sculptures carving marble until he is in control. When Rodin died, nobody could make another kiss, or the eternal spring, or those beautiful marbles he had. The thinker, the top, the head emerging from the rock. So he immediately envisioned this, but his ability was to make them model and guide the carver. He always gave the credit to the carver.
Let's talk a bit about the place where Michelangelo got his marble and where you get yours as well. Right. Carrara in Italy. So what is it about this place that makes it such a great source of marble for sculptors?
That mountain you see there, 1 mile in height, and as close to the sea as you see here. Carrara is right there under the mountain, somewhere those red roofs there. And the rest is marble. And then you have one of the best marble ever discovered in this location, which is at the northwest corner of Tuscany. You don't even think of anything other source. But Michelangelo found his marble here, and some documents. In the next picture I will show you. In this area called Polvaccio, he asked when he was painting the ceiling in Rome or other things held him back, he couldn't come to the quarry in person. Give me the white marble from Polvaccio, this area. And the quarry here is still called, the next picture will show you, here is Edward Lucy Smith, art historian, coming to see the area, Polvaccio. And he was dropping some tears of emotion. 500 years later, when Michelangelo found his marble right there. Here is a tense moment when they cut now with a wire saw and the marble comes down, and we look for the next block, which one is fitting what we want. This is exciting when the sculpture begins in the quarry. You find your marble. It's like you look for a girl to marry. And you don't want a prearranged marriage or a forced marriage. You want to choose your bride. You go there and you fall in love. And this is as emotional and as important. Each block has a relationship with the sculptor and the sculptor relationship. It's like listening, understanding, respecting each other. Marble has a quality which makes exceptional material for carving, that it is a crystalline limestone. The tectonic plates were pushing from Africa to Europe. They pushed and melted large deposits of limestone, and they got crystallized. And that's what you saw in large of the mountain and close up here. And only a couple of spots in this mountain are holding this white marble. Honest to God, these are the same quality marble called, according to legend, by Michelangelo statuario, marble for sculpting. And it is from the same place, same area, and this is the best. That's why he found the best marble there, and he still finds the best marble right there.
So is it just that it's high quality marble that draws you to Carrara, or do you like the association with Michelangelo? You know, the fact that you can say that you get your marble.
Michelangelo is a great marketing for my friend Franco Baratini, who is next to me there with the grayer hair than me. He's 2 years older than me, looking at the marble.
Yeah. And
that's it. He's the general. He's coordinating the whole activity in a 5-kilometer wide arena. And
so, can I ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
Can anyone get marble from this quarry if you just show up and
yes,
buy
of course.
Some, or do you...
Yes, of course. But I will show you another picture, an area where the best marble, the way you sit on the top of the head of Adrianus on the right, a very fragmented area. That's where this fine marble is. Apparently, this really fine marble is more sensitive to the tectonic activities and fractures, so it's very difficult to find large blocks. David is from this area, but a little bit gray, not snow white background. That is, as a quality, as good, but for smaller sculptures, the white marble is the preferred material.
So do you get the better stuff if you know the guys and you can,
Well, it's a practical matter because in Michelangelo studies, you went there with the cash and you bought the marble. Today is the very same thing. Because until that fine marble, which is not coming every time to the surface, and not large blocks enough every time. Sometimes there are hiatuses of 5 years when we reach again a good vein of this white marble. So until you go to the marble yard where they take all the blocks, there is a name already on the good blocks, Pablo Achugari. That's one of my friends. And the large, nice blocks are all called Pablo. So I told Franco, I come to the quarry and I buy directly from the quarry. Of course, come in. So I already have my people there, the quarry master, everybody calling me, warning me, we are approaching the right. So I go there. And there's a story that once I sold a sculpture with nice money, I got 10,000 euros in my pocket. I called Friday, 4:45 in the afternoon. Franco, where are you? In the quarry, where I should be. I will be there in 10 minutes. I went there were beautiful blocks. Give me something to mark, a little tail. It was blue. Marton, here, put your name now, because I said, if this block goes without my name, then it will be Pablo next day. So I put my name there and I wrote with the blue. And all of a sudden I see that my signature starts turning red. So what's wrong? It was my blood. The crayon was gone. I was so excited that the crayon was gone that I was scratching the marble with my finger until it started red. So this is the true story. So it's a great excitement to find a marble, and it's always a fight and a hunt for the best.
So who are these?
Look who are there. Now here is an interesting thing. Modern technology, you see the drone flying up there. It's like a mosquito up there. So they were searching if the arena is safe and it would not hold any flaws which would make the wall to collapse. So from time to time, this is still a dangerous business. So the drone was filming and searching for any flaw. Luckily they didn't find anything, so the work goes on.
So let's switch now from Italy to Greece. The figure in this sculpture by Marton is actually sculpted in another time-hallowed type of marble called pentelic marble, which the great sculptures of the Parthenon were made out of. It's called Figure in the Wind, and you made it for the city of Volos in Greece, and it's clearly a homage to ancient Greek sculpture. Now, what do the ancient Greeks mean to you? We've talked a lot about Michelangelo, is obviously a big inspiration, but what about ancient Greek sculpture?
Well, Michelangelo got his inspiration also from the ancient Greeks. And I think the Greeks perfected sculpting marble the best in the whole history of arts. They had very good marble and they took very seriously. The gods and athletes were carved in marble, so it was very serious. And they discovered also the importance of drapery. It was not necessarily modesty because they carved nude male athletes one after the other, but the drapery would enhance and help to show and hide the forms in a very interesting way. So they developed those beautiful folds and drapery is still wonder were they using a model with a bed sheet on, or what made that you see the body, the drapery is integral part and it is real drapery, but still enhances and follows. So that was intriguing me.
Yeah. And there, in another early work in your career here, which is simply called Torso, you show that you too are a master of that way of showing the volumes of the body coming through the diaphanous covering of drapery. This is a particularly gorgeous work. But could you talk a bit about your technique, and since there are tools down there in the foreground, maybe you could talk about the things you use to achieve these effects?
Until recently, most of the tools were the classic stone carving tools already known to the Egyptians, and from there on Greeks, medieval sculptors. So you see that mallet and some rasps, some chisels maybe, but I don't know. And I first started to use diamond blades in walls, what you saw. And then at this time I didn't have a diamond blade. This predates the Varo sculpture, the couple of months. Actually, my first diamond blade was purchased in Voros. And then you can shape marble the traditional way that you all start studying like that, and then modern tools, diamond blades with discs, and power tools spinning specially shaped tips. You can make everything, but this was made mostly with the traditional way, the chisel, some discs, some really primitive first tools. Today we have everything in diamond. If you would not mind showing the next, because there is a trick here. That's the girl with the bed sheet on her. We were taking photos because I discovered that the photo would freeze the split of the second. As we breathe and move, the drapery, the folds always change. But if you take a photo, that would preserve. And the girl said, okay, enough, I need to lay down for a minute. As she lay down, I found this so interesting, I told my friend, click now. So that picture is pretty much better because it's in my pocket over my heart for a year until I made this sculpture. It was the hard way. All the ways, the classical tools in those rasps you saw in the previous picture, and filing for days and days and days until it took shape. So I was trying to make a photorealistic approach.
So we've been looking at figures, but you also do rather abstract, blocky-looking sculptures, like some of the ones here on a small scale around the room here. You know, you can see that they're not conventionally representational sculptures. They have a more abstract quality, and that goes back quite early in your career when you were doing works like this on commission in Budapest. This is in the Forum Hotel, I believe, in Budapest. So it seems like this kind of work is kind of disconnected from your work as a figure sculpture, but is it? Do the two connect?
I hope that they connect, because if you see, they appear to be like folds or fragments of a great figure. So I figured out that if I made torsos, and then we drape torsos, and then split torsos, just a part of the torso, until I realized that there would be a way to put together these fragments if I make building blocks, like spheres or blocks, cubes. And I started playing with them, and I pretend that this is my discovery in addition to sculpting, that you can play many ways and put together, but I hope that you still feel a little bit of the human aspect, the human feeling with the folds, even if they not obviously follow the shape, they could be very small fragments of a sculpture, but somehow it's not completely geometric abstract.
Yeah. Well, here's another one.
This is a combination.
Yeah. Yeah. This is in the Congress Center in Budapest. So you were talking of Hungary and Romania, where you've lived and worked. For a large part of your early career, 20 years, you were working in under communist regimes. What was that like to be an artist there? First training in Romania in the 1960s, and then from 1970 to the time you moved to the States in 1988, you were behind the Iron Curtain. Was it okay to be an artist?
Well, it was not okay for anybody except you were on the top of the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
I had very good school in Transylvania. We have to say just a few words. The Transylvania, which translates from Transylvania in Latin, like neck of the woods. We had old schools for centuries. We were sometimes just an island in the Turkish occupied area. We were holding traditions, and education was very, very good in my time. When I went to school, those masters who were traveling before the war and communism was imposed on us, so they knew from Paris to München, from Rome, and gave us those information and tradition. We had an crochet, a study of anatomy made by Brancusi, who lived in the other side of the Carpathian Mountains than Transylvania. And then we had great teachers and manuals, beautiful book on anatomy, and we had a very good school. But after that, what could you do? That comes with the harsh life in. If you were kissing up to the system and doing monuments to communist ideas, you could get a job, but really not for everybody. And we didn't feel like that we wanted to be artists to do some stupid illustration of ideas nobody could believe. So when I moved to Hungary, it was a little bit easier, because in Hungary you could survive being tolerated by the system if you didn't offend, but like the architects would select your work and wanted to do as the decoration of the building. So this is not political, has nothing to do with the ideals we didn't believe in, but architects would push through as addition to a building, public building. So those who were making the monuments were the celebrated, the rich and the big guys, but those who could do this type of job without compromising your feelings and ideas, and then there were those who were absolutely banned. So these three categories, I fell in the middle. They're not banned, tolerated, not necessarily supported, but I could make a living with it.
Mm-hmm. So one thing I like about your work is the way that you pay homage to great sculpture of the past, the ancient Greeks, Michelangelo in some ways, but you've also absorbed influences from early on from modern sculptors. You just mentioned Brancusi.
Brancusi was one of my ideas.
Yeah.
Henry Moore. From
Henry Moore, yeah.
Henry Moore, yes.
Moore.
We called him Moore, I'm sorry, as you call Michelangelo. So, but he was a great idea for me. I loved his work. And then Noguchi, Louis Neverson, many, many great sculptors in recent past.
So this is back in Carrara. This is a thing called the Nicoli Studio.
So this is
what's the significance of this for you?
Well, You see the head of David, I think, there, or something large,
Oh yeah.
or models from the facade of the opera in Mexico City, or anything. This is a sculpture in progress. Somebody brought the drapery dipped in plaster and hardened, and then they carve a sculpture of it. This is Nicoli's studio. These are the guys who can carve anything. If the artist is there and can make it happen, the magic happens. If not, they do a good job. But this is a great studio for centuries of tradition, and they made the replica of the David, which is now outside in the front of the scenery.
And I believe that this thing is a pointing machine, isn't it?
That's exactly the pointing machine. They can measure like a pantograph.
So they do. It's a way of making a 3D measurement of a model and translating it to a bigger scale, or duplicating it exactly.
Yes.
Or maybe taking a sculpture that was modelled and translating it into a sculpture that's carved, which I think happened with Rodin, right?
Yes, but Rodin had his own stone carvers in Paris. But Louis Bourgeois sculptures were carved for decades in this studio. Mm-hmm. We are not supposed to take pictures of Louis Bourgeois sculptures. So this is showing just a part of the studio because we are not supposed to take anything close to Louis Bourgeois. Mm-hmm. But there were lots of great sculptors whose work were executed here, and they did a wonderful job.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the beginning of the sculpture that's now at my museum, Laguna Art Museum, on display in the lobby. It's a recent work, so we had the opportunity to document its creation, which began, just last year, right? And so we've got a sequence of slides here where Martin can talk us through the process of getting from this raw block of stone to a beautiful sculpture.
Well, you asked me why I left certain parts of the block still visible. Look at this beauty. This is what Mother Nature created, and you see the history of the marble. You see the energy when the marble was split by the tectonic movements of the mountain. And this is what I feel inspired by. And I always try to leave as much of the block would be available to save to show the real beauty. You cannot create something like this. You can mess with it. I started already a sketch on the marble.
Yeah, you see it's like there's a leg here.
And the next picture will show also the front view. And then I took a deep breath and I started spoiling it. So this is messing with the marble and sweating out how could I do something which would make sense. I mean, what I leave and how much I take, and what would be still really showing the excitement and inspiration I got from these blocks. So little by little, here are the modern tools. You see the hammer because that's a good thing to show that I'm actually hammering, but my core tools are hidden around because I can cut and then break and cut, and then I turn the blade around and shave the marble. That speeds up the process. It doesn't help you to make a better sculpture, but speeds up and puts even more pressure because the blade can take a little bit ahead of you want, and then everything is spoiled. So it's still a risk there.
All right.
Dana doesn't want us to dwell on this one, so so here's the sculpture in the museum. This
That's Dana?
Yeah.
Let's go back to those pictures.
Yeah, see, maybe part of the inspiration. But we light it very dramatically at night, and we've had the figure's very shapely backside is very visible from the coast highway, and we've had at least one fender bender right outside the museum. It's true. It's absolutely true. So, what a lot of people ask about your sculpture when they visit the museum is that they wonder why you left the head as just a raw chunk of stone like that.
The raw chunk of stone is beautiful. Plus, if you make a portrait there, inevitably, even a stylized head would look like somebody, and which would make it too personal maybe. Sometimes I feel that it should be just left as a mystery. Especially when you have that beautiful surface of the original block.
Yeah. And of course it's the Michelangelo thing too, because it reminds the viewer that this was originally a block of stone in which you found a figure. You know,
But that's
there's a bit of the block left.
That's the exciting thing.
Yeah.
How much you show of the process and actually the energy.
Mhm. So going to the grand scale, these are the huge figures of angels that I'm very familiar with from Fort Worth. This is Bass Hall, built by the very wealthy Bass family who were based in Fort Worth, Texas. They funded the creation of a brand new concert hall, and Martin won the commission to sculpt the angels on the front of it. How did that commission come about?
It goes back to Volos. I met Noguchi when I was in Volos. There was a conference, international conference about the situation of painting and sculpture in Delphi. When I heard that Noguchi was coming, I asked my organizers, I was in a symposium with some communist country poor guys sculpting the beautiful marble and very excited to be in Greece. But I wanted to meet Noguchi, so my organizer called the organizer of the symposium, and they had no participants from the communist countries, so they immediately welcomed us. And I met there lots of famous artists. I had something to say about the discrimination of the art business, not the politics. What was east of Elba, behind the Iron Curtain, and the other side of the Iron Curtain, so we are not really known to the world. And that made sense to a lot of artists, and Linda Bagnis told me that she would help whatever when I come to America. I told her that I was already coming with a Fulbright scholarship. She gave my work, a little catalog, to an agent in Dallas. She had needed a sculptor who would carve fast and cheap 2 large sculptures. The sculptures were placed in a building complex where the shop drawings for Bass Hall were made. So when they were looking for sculptors to cover up these 2 walls, which the architect, to his chagrin, could not make vaulted windows, all the air conditioning tubing goes in those walls, so they needed somebody to carve 2 angels. And they had a list, and these guys who made the shop drawings suggested that my name, I carved their sculpture in the entrance, should be on that list. So out of 72, they selected 6 to compete, and then I made the model right at the way you see here, because I asked them if they wanted a sculptor or somebody who would execute their work. They said they wanted a sculptor. Next question. What material you use? Cordova cream limestone. I didn't know, but they told me that I could see buildings in Fort Worth of that. Third question. What is the modular? Because the typical, you see the size of the division of the stone. They gave me that, and I made a 2-foot model. That was the requirement to show up with the model of the idea, whatever material, 2-foot tall. So I made little bricks, little pieces of stone, the same way, and I assembled 52 pieces to make an angel. Well, you see here on real scale, but that small scale convinced at best that he not only liked my work, but saw how I make it. The other sculptors had no idea, would be in cement, in plastic, or bronze, or whatever. But I made it like emerging from the same material coming. Actually, my first model was more dynamic. I wanted really some blocks moved like on the conference hall, or congress hall. Anyway, they insisted that I tone down a little bit and I make more whatever after a little bit of crisis should I compromise or not. I still took the job because it's too exciting to do it. And I carved it right here, around the corner of the Jamboree campus. Nobody knew about it, and nobody was supposed to know about it. They made a complete rule of no talking about, no press, no anything. So anyway, they assembled, I had a team of static engineers who made the calculations how these pieces would stick to the wall and they're still on the wall. So it's a fantastic collaboration. I gave them dimensions from my 1 to 6 scale model. They built the whole facade as big as the wall. At West came to see the 1 to 6 scale model on the building. So the whole facade was made in plywood. And I put my daughter's Barbie doll on the balcony. You see that guy in the blue shirt. And at that moment, they got exact view and impression of what they would like in large scale.
So let me ask you a bit about commissions. You know, a lot of modern and contemporary artists don't really like doing commissions because you're beholden to your patron, who might put restrictions on what you do, and you don't enjoy the same kind of freedom as you do when you just produce a work in your studio, and then try and sell it afterwards. So commissions, sometimes they're even Michelangelo had a hard time with commissions sometimes. Do you like them, or do you just do them to make a living?
We have a love and hate relationship because Michelangelo was complaining that he was not a painter, so the Pope challenged him. So you say that you could not paint my ceiling, and he got him.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, patrons these days are not like those bad Pope or rulers who want it, because if they chose an artist, they give freedom to them. The Pope was a little bit concerned about Michelangelo painting the creation and all these scenes, so he sent a biblical scholar to talk to Michelangelo. And Michelangelo was so serious about everything and knew so much that the scholar went back to the Pope. Your Holiness, we should not bother him. He knows better. Leave him alone. And he did. Modern patrons are not that. Well, at least in my case, I never had a patron or commission where I had absolute freedom. So I said, I had some concern, but still I could push my ideas far enough that I could relate to it. I would never take a commission where I don't like the idea or they want to hold my hand. So it's a compromise, and unfortunately it's always still a compromise. But the challenge is also very important.
So this is work towards your most recent large-scale commission, which was a big relief sculpture. Look at the size of that.
Wow.
A giant relief sculpture at Ave Maria University in Florida. By the way, what is a relief sculpture?
Well, the relief is a flat wall piece where the two dimensions are dominant. The thickness varies. Egyptians made very flat reliefs. With the right light, it becomes three-dimensional. And the room is totally different from a rhombus where you see all around, or the relief. And there are flat reliefs and there are haute relief. This is almost a sculpture, a very high relief, because the head actually is three-dimensionally correct. The rest is flattened, and it's an interesting game how you make it emerge or not. And to the credit to this work, that very conservative Catholic group never ever tried to tell me how to do, mess with me, comment. They were the most supportive patrons. It was not their money. It was a totally different story. I don't want to go there because I still have some issues with the guys who actually paid for it. And they donated to the church. But the church never really I was working on the wall, they were holding mass. And I was grinding on the wall. And they never came out, the priest didn't come out, shut up and don't do this. Yeah. No, they were very supportive, to their credit. And it was a hell of a good time for me, because I was living there, walked to that field where the 1 to 6 scale model was. I made those panels individually, we assembled on the wall, I had the basket lift. This is the key. I could go up, work, adjust, come down. Next minute I was looking from the viewpoint. At the bath hall, everything was scaffolded. And the funny story with Nicole, because I asked Nicole how much would cost if would they carve the sculpture. And
These are the people in Carrara.
Carrara, the studio people. Carlo Nicole is a storyteller. So he answered me a year and a half after I asked him for a suggestion of price. 5 pages saying, even if you are the most efficient Rambo of the old stone carvers, you would never be able to carve it. It needs that many stone carvers, that many hours. He made a correct calculation. I was already making the chest part of both angels simultaneously. So, and then when I went back to him, he said, okay, but you will see that the angel will be crooked. He showed me like crooked because he couldn't figure how it would come together. But I had a 1 to 6 scale model, and I was freaking out when he said that until the scaffolding came down. Here, the scaffold was non-existent. So I could go up, work on her face next to the angel's foot, and could see the whole thing without anything in this covering.
It's a challenging form of sculpture, really, because what you're making is something that's in between, a relief sculpture, I mean, because it's something that's in between a painting, really, and a sculpture. It's a fully rounded sculpture. So it takes a lot of ingenuity to make it all work. Do you feel that artists should be religious themselves in order to produce good religious art? It's a very difficult question.
Well,
you could pass if you like.
I don't want to pass, I don't want to go to the depth, but certain iconic images are so well known, and so many artists did a version of it, that you feel free to do your spin on stories. I always say, painters, good church-going, very religious painters could still paint female nudes from the Bible. Bethsabe's bath seen by David, the king. And then the old man who denounced Susanna, that she was committing adultery. These two scenes are repeated over and over and over. It is in the Bible, so it was safe. So much for the religious context and the artistic freedom. To me, Mary is also an emerging figure. She got the news. God is hovering over there. But everything could be interpreted my way, and as I said, no biblical scholar came after me to tell me something or hold my hand. And so that was...
So then it's a subject that kind of lent itself to your interest in figures emerging out of stone, didn't it? Because the Virgin Mary is emerging into her role as a religious figure, because this is the moment when the angel appears to her to tell her that she's going to bear the Christ child. So it's the beginning of her story.
Yes, and it is, as you said very well, that it is in emerging. She becomes another person from that moment. Mm-hmm. And then you can have the interpretation from the biblical aspect and also from artistic. And I was more concerned how I translate any idea into three-dimensional sculpture image.
So what was the occasion here?
While I was working there, my gallery owner told me that his high school from Minnesota wanted to issue a war hero award. and they were intended to give to the 41st president, George H. Bush. So I improvised. It was very challenging, interesting marble version, which was then translated in bronze. They made the mold of my original marble, and I had the honor to give the president and the first lady in person. And they were wonderful people. It was a nice memory.
Good. Well, I'm sure people in the audience have questions, so let's just go through a few other projects very briefly, and you can say a few words about them. Where's this one?
This is in Norway, and this is my first collaboration with Dana. Dana, could you stand up, please, so people can see? Thank you.
Okay.
That was a wonderful project. The funny thing was that I had the idea, and I went to talk to the architect. It was a nice day in July in Norway. The sun was up, and it was warm. And I was looking around the building, walking with the architect, and choosing the right place where we would put the sculpture. And they had a funny look as they looked at me, and I said, "What's wrong with me? Marton, in 2 months we will have 2 meters of snow here, so we have to go inside." But the point was that they just added a new building to the old traditional building of the School of Technology in Trondheim, which is the MIT in Europe, like the famous university in Boston. So the connecting hallway was a real architectural bravura, and they wanted the sculpture inside. So everybody was happy, and the sculpture is there, and I'm really proud that I have that sculpture.
And this one?
This is in Korea. We were at the international symposium in Korea. This is my only adventure in granite. They provided stone carvers, granite, good conditions, great respect, supporting 10 sculptors from 10 different countries from all over the world and 10 local sculptors. That's when I figured out that the language of sculpting is Italian, like the music, because all the sculptors from all over the world spoke Italian. And then the sculpture was put in the front of their parliament. This is my second term in Fort Worth, and I'm very happy with this sculpture. It is on the TCU campus in front of a beautiful building just opened right before I put the sculpture there. And this is my next project for UCI, if everything goes all right. Still in my studio. Look at that rusty frame, please. That is where all the pieces for the angels were carved. So that to me is very. So that is the model which is there on the table, and the large blocks we wait for the moment when we put together at the art school in the near future.
So, any questions? Yes.
Yeah, a few of us were fortunate enough to see the angels emerge from the stone. Could you talk a little bit, Marton, about the logistics of having the blocks and having to build up? And my recollection is they would ship the bottom level to Texas while you were working at Irvine, and that was just an extraordinary thing to watch. So the logistics of that were incredible. So if you could comment on that.
Thank you very much. That was a funny story because I gave dimensions from that already mentioned 1:6 scale model to the engineers. Now they never were sent here to see the real model. I sent them drawings, pictures, and dimensions for each piece of 52. And I will describe the project that you drive blindfolded, and the guy who gives you dimensions doesn't know how to drive and has my accent. And they still did a wonderful, wonderful job. The stone is still there. And since I gave them the dimensions, the stones were carved to the size. with the grooves, everything already in place as they were going to be attached to the wall. So each piece was put together 3 layers at a time. I carved all 3 at the first step. You will see on the page of my catalog the first 3 sections of the one angel. And then I left one piece on the top, went to the bottom when they removed the carved pieces, and the one from the top came now guiding me how to keep going on. So one carved piece at the bottom and 2 new stones were installed, so those ears, please go back to the frame. You see that, this one, you see those ear-like things with a hole. Those were where we attached each piece, and they were solidly put on the frame. I carved them. When I called that the carving was done, the truck came, loaded with the crane on the truck, and then the new stones the truck brought were attached on the wall, this frame, and I kept going on and on and on. Only the upper arms were 15 tons each, and I couldn't ask them to. I rather offered that I go to the Korea and carve on location there. That was a tremendous adventure there. And then they were roughly shaped and everything connecting, but when they put on the wall, I went up on the scaffold and I adjusted. And Dana came and saw and checked if I was doing right. She was very, very strict. And it was a lot of fun doing that with the construction workers, 7 months in the making, and I couldn't see anything. I was as freaking out as anybody else when the scaffolding came down. And I have a funny picture with the 2 heads in place there on the frame, and Jim and Samson holding the pushing the 2. And so my friends like Larry and Jim and lots of friends, Armenian friends, came to follow up. I was in a trance, I don't know, it was really an interesting time in my life, and I had to thank so many people who supported me morally, and then those who really helped me put on the wall. Every calculation was matching. The reach out of the space from the wall is 14 feet, when the hole, where the angel holds the trumpet. Just one upper arm is 8 feet. So it was really exciting times.
The Dana he's referring to is in the back of the room. Dana's employed from my board who put this whole thing together. Marton, thank you for a very enjoyable and informative. Thank you. And Martin, thank you for the wonderful moderation tonight. And thank you for continuing support for the Art Foundation. And thank you for coming.